So I've talked about this foundation method in my favorites video for February, and I figured while I still got this beautiful bruising that I would show you how it's done, because I feel like this is not just be good for, this would be good not just for, you know, bruising, but people that need really good coverage, because maybe you have your foundation that you feel like it's just not performing in terms of coverage for you the way you want it. But I feel like this method really helps with that. This is not an original method. This is not mine. This is something I learned from Wayne Goss. So if you want to see that original video, then you can click up here. But I'm going to show you the products that I use for this method, because I've tried color correcting, and I feel like it just looked way too cakey because I was using way too many products. I would have to color correct this, and then I would have to set that with powder, and then I would have to use foundation and then concealer on top of that. It just got really cakey, especially around here. And for me, maybe it's just my situation because I have this brace thing and like the shape of my eye and like the dryness under my eyes that I'm having right now because of this situation. That's probably the reason why, but there is going to be some level of cakiness, not too much, because throughout the day I find that my skin becomes, because I have oily skin, my skin becomes more dewy throughout the day, so it kind of helps combat that. But basically, we're going to be, instead of foundation, concealer, powder, we're actually going to start with powder. And what this does, the powder kind of primes the skin for the foundation, so that, I don't know what it does, but for some reason it just makes the foundation like a little bit goes much longer, and it just covers better. I feel like the skin doesn't absorb as much of the product, and even the sponge doesn't absorb as much product. Most of the foundation will go on the skin. I don't know why this is the case, but that is the case. So what you want to do first is you have to make, because we're using powder below everything, because you know how they're always like, oh, never use cream or liquid on top of powder. This is okay as long as your skin is well moisturized. I already moisturized my skin, but that was earlier, so I'm going to be adding a kind of Radiance Glow hydrating sort of primer. This one is from Pony Effect. We can use something like the MAC Strobe Cream, just something, you know, or just use a regular moisturizer. Just make sure your skin is really moist. You can also use a primer if you want. Here, let me moisturize both sides of my face, but to demonstrate, I'm going to show you the foundation and stuff. I'm going to do it on one side. And also, I just felt like there's so many different colors going on here at the same time that getting the right color to color correct with was just becoming way too difficult. So I found that just adding really full coverage was enough for me. And then immediately after that, I'm going to go into powder. This one is from MAC. This is the Mineralized Foundation Loose Powder. You don't have to use powder foundation. You can use, as long as it's loose powder, you can use whatever you want. But you really don't need that much. You just need to make sure you have like a layer of powder. Oh, holy shit, bitch. This is obviously way too fucking much. So make sure you really get into every part of the face. There we go. I don't know if you can tell, but it almost adds a tiny bit of coverage, but of course you can obviously still see like the extreme bruising that I have. So now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add foundation on top of that. The one I'm going to use is the Clio Kill Cover, and I'm going to use that with Skin Food Wedge Puff. Now again, because this method of foundation application requires less foundation, I'm not going to use as much foundation on the sponge. Hopefully you can tell on camera how much coverage I'm getting from this, because I really didn't put that much. I put like a little dot on the sponge. And as long as your skin was really moisturized underneath, it should remain skin-like, because that's the goal in mind, because that's definitely a problem that I was having with like color correcting. The more products I was using, the more it was looking like cakey. You can see the tiny little dot right there. I get a tiny amount of foundation. Oh my fucking god. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but that actually covered quite a bit already. And all I need now is just a bit more concealer to conceal like the this like black spot. I mean, if you don't have any bruising like this, and you just have like regular acne scarring, because even like a lot of my major moles, like a lot of my moles you can't even really see anymore. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this concealer from the Sem. Really affordable, but the coverage is really good. I'm gonna dot the liquid just on the dark part here. And I think it's a little bit lighter than the other foundation. That way I can get that sort of like brightening effect. And normally I would just use this sponge again, but because I have like this thing, I think it would be easier to use this little mini beauty blender. Girl, I think this thing is such a waste of time, but this is like the only time I would ever use this for. And having the powder under everything really helps with like, because I feel like, you know, with liquid products, when you put them on and you're like blending with like a sponge or your finger, a lot of it just comes off and you're like taking the actual product off the skin rather than blending it in. And a lot of it just has to do with the fact that it's a liquid. You're kind of just like pulling it off the skin with the finger or whatever you're using to blend it out. But having that powder there really helps to grab the product and keep it on the skin. But, oh my god, yeah! Oh! Bitch, yes. And now I know it's looking like way lighter than my ear, but my ear got a lot darker and redder from like, because they took the cartilage out of this ear, so it's a little bit, as you can tell, it's kind of darker than the other ear. So I'm not gonna put, I don't want to put any foundation on it because it's still healing, so, I don't know, if you have to put foundation on your ear, just do that. And now all there is left to do is just set it with powder. You actually don't need to set this with powder because I feel like the powder itself works as a primer as well. So if you have dry skin, you can completely skip this, but if you have oily skin, then you can set again, which is what I'm going to do, only because I really want to set that concealer, and I don't want it to go anywhere. So as you can see, I've covered quite a bit of like everything basically. Might still be able to see a little bit here. Probably could have done a better job at that, but for the most part, I'm pretty happy with, you know, this much. I can go out like this. But again, this is not just for people with like extreme bruising. It's great. It's a great method for anyone that wants really much more coverage out of their foundation. So yeah, I'm working on this side, and you can already see I actually used less foundation on this side, but and I haven't even used concealer, but you can really see how just that powder makes a huge difference. And there you go. That's the finished look. I hope you guys found that useful. If you're interested in any of the base products that I use, I will link them down below for you. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!